Now, something that might make Bitcoin go absolutely parabolic despite recently having hit all-time highs. Bitcoin recently hit a new all-time high, and a lot of people are wondering, is Bitcoin going to keep going up? In this video, I'll be breaking down technical analysis, fundamental analysis, and all the way out to on-chain data. My 6 years of experience is telling me that you don't want to miss this. So, as you might be able to tell by simply taking a glance at Bitcoin, here a few days ago, we actually ended up breaking the all-time highs. Now, the previous all-time high was about 112,000, and the peak of the new all-time high is 123,000. Now, I myself have been long on Bitcoin since about 102, 103,000 because of the power of 3 that I've went over in multiple videos. Now, the question is, do I expect Bitcoin to continue to go up? Again, Bitcoin is an asset, and as it goes up, then it comes down, and then it hopefully goes up again. You see, the market is attracted to two things. It wants to accumulate two very specific things. The first one is liquidity, the most famous one, right? Let's say that people want to figure out exactly where Bitcoin is going to go next. Well, then they're going to look at highs like the one you're seeing right here. And the reason why they're going to look at those highs is because they believe that there's a bunch of stop orders resting at that specific high. Now, traders will refer to this as liquidity within the market, and that is one of the things that the market is attracted to. Now, the other thing that the market is attracted to is imbalances, inefficiencies, or otherwise known as fair value gaps. So what I've marked out here is the recent imbalances, fair value gaps, inefficiencies, whatever you want to call it, on Bitcoin. Now, what you might be able to notice that throughout all of these imbalances, they have something in common. They are all getting revisited by price, right? As you can see, price eventually hits these imbalances before moving higher or lower. And so based off of what Bitcoin has done previously, we can only anticipate that if Bitcoin is going to have a pullback, which right now, if we take a look at the candlestick, it does look like it is going to have a pullback, it's going to be somewhere near this imbalance or the imbalance that we're seeing right here. Because again, that's what Bitcoin has done throughout history. And it's not only Bitcoin, it's basically any asset. The market moves from premium to discount and from discount to premium, all right? Right now, the market is traded into a high premium, which again means that when this market eventually wants to have a pullback, it is likely going to revisit discount of the previous range before then moving up higher once again. Now, I personally don't think that you'll ever get another chance to buy Bitcoin below 100,000. I don't think that the low that you're seeing right here will really ever get swept. Now, again, let's say that Bitcoin does want to revisit discount. Where is that? Well, we're going to use our Fibonacci extension tool, and the 50% level that you're seeing right here is known as equilibrium. Now, anything above equilibrium is considered a premium, and anything below it is, of course, considered a discount. So when Bitcoin is going to have a pullback, I expect it to go below equilibrium and maybe revisit the small accumulation that you've seen right here before then riding the market long once again up into a premium. So again, this right here is exactly how a market moves. It is not some new concept. No, this has been taught on Wall Street for decades, and basically every veteran trader knows exactly what you're talking about when you say a market moves from premium to discount and from discount to premium. It's not a new concept. No, I did not find this on Twitter and I'm pulling it out of my pocket in order to sell you a course on it. No, this has been taught for decades. Now, if we take the previous Bitcoin halvings into consideration, well, then there's still quite a while until we're going to see yet another Bitcoin halving. Now, what you might also notice is that the cycle peaks about 500 days after the actual halving. Now, again, this is a monthly time frame, and we are actually closing up on the 500-day mark. So we're getting really close to historically the cycle top. Now, does that mean that it's definitely going to happen? Absolutely not. In fact, I wouldn't even be able to compare this cycle to any other Bitcoin cycle because it's entirely different. In 2024, the SEC approved the first crypto ETF. This is the first time that it's happened, and this essentially pulled forward institutional demand before it traditionally would, which again altered that cycle that we all know. In 2022, Russia decided to invade Ukraine, and we've just seen the Israel-Iran tensions, and overall, this cycle has been entirely different, so we can't really compare it. But again, let's say that this cycle is somehow going to play out like the rest of the cycles, well, then we could start to see a massive pullback, otherwise known as a bear market. Now, let's take a look at the global liquidity, because the global liquidity is actually the reason for the massive pump that we've just seen. You see, the global liquidity essentially measures all the money that flows in between the major economies. And so the more money that flows in between the major economies, the more money is now capable of flowing into Bitcoin. What we're looking at here is an 80-day offset. Okay, this is essentially where the market expects global liquidity to be over the next 80 days. Now, obviously, it expects global liquidity to go a lot higher. However, recently we've started to see a shift in sentiment. You see, it almost looks like a downtrend is starting to form, which we obviously don't want to see. If there's less money in the economy, well, then there's less probability of a Bitcoin rally. Now, again, does this mean that the entire sentiment is actually shifting? Absolutely not, but it is an indication that we have to pay attention to. Now, something that might make Bitcoin go absolutely parabolic despite recently having hit all-time highs is actually rate cuts. Okay, what we're looking at here is a 10-year chart of the US interest rate data. Now, what you might be able to notice here is that it is currently sitting at about a 4.5%, which is near an all-time high in 10 years. Now, what does this tell us? Well, it tells us that we're likely going to have rate cuts very, very soon, because I know that Donald Trump publicly said that he wanted interest rates near 1%. Now, what does this historically do for Bitcoin? Well, as you might be able to tell, it is really, really bullish. In September of 2024, the Fed decided to aggressively cut interest rates. Now, as they did that, Bitcoin rose about 77%. So rate cuts is just a massive bullish catalyst for Bitcoin as a whole. Now you might sit there and wonder, well, if rate cuts are going to go down that aggressively, doesn't that mean that inflation is going to go through the roof? Now that is correct. And yes, inflation can be very, very bearish, but right now, the inflation is sitting at about 2.4%. So we do have a lot of upside potential for inflation before it becomes an actual problem. You see, in September of 2024, when the Fed actually decided to cut rates, it was sitting at about 2.4%. Now, this chart is not entirely up to date because the recent data shows us that the inflation is actually below 2%. So again, they cut rates aggressively when the inflation was about 2.4%, and right now it is below their target of 2%. So we can only anticipate that yes, we're going to see aggressive rate cuts once again, just like in 2024, if not more aggressive, because again, Trump wants the interest rate near 1%. So that right there in itself can be a massive bullish catalyst for Bitcoin, and something else that actually speaks for Bitcoin going way higher, something that we haven't really seen in any other cycle, is the Google Trends being extremely low despite Bitcoin trading above 120,000. Now, recently we started to see more and more interest pick up here on Bitcoin. Now, if the Google Trends chart then decides to go all the way up to 100 like it did in 2021, I guarantee you that Bitcoin is going to be way closer to 150, 160,000, and even further than that. So I don't really think that any price predictions this cycle is unrealistic. I mean, we can even take a look at the MVRVC score, and it's currently sitting at about 2.7%. Now, again, this is also a tool that will tell you whether Bitcoin is over or undervalued. I would not consider Bitcoin overvalued at all until it starts trading above a 4. Once it starts trading above a 4, we can clearly see that it trades within a bubble, and once that bubble explodes, well, then Bitcoin sells off. Right now, Bitcoin is fairly valued and slightly undervalued in my opinion. So according to the MVRVC score, Bitcoin has much further to go. So again, I do think that Bitcoin has much further to go. However, if this cycle is going to play out like previous cycles had, well, then we can clearly expect a pullback or a bear market to happen very, very soon. Thank you a lot for watching. I hope I helped you out. And if I did, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.